The Corpus Hermeticum, Chapter 4. The Sacred Sermon. The glory of all things is God, Godhead, and godly nature. Source of the things that are is God, who is both mind and nature. Ye matter, the wisdom that reveals all things. Source, too, is Godhead. Ye nature, energy, necessity, and end, and making new again. Darkness that knew no bounds was in abyss, and water, too, and subtle breath intelligent. These were by power of God in chaos. Then holy light arose, and there collected neath dry space, literally sand, from out moist essence elements, and all the gods do separate things out from fecund nature, all things being undefined and yet unwrought. The light things were assigned unto the height. The heavy ones had their foundation laid down underneath the moist part of dry space. The universal things being bounded off by fire and hanged in breath to keep them up. And heaven was seen in 7 circles. Its gods were visible in forms of the stars with all their signs, while nature had her members made articulate together with the gods in her. And heaven's peripheral revolved in cyclic course, borne on by breath of God, and every god by his own proper power brought forth what was appointed him. Thus there arose 4-footed beasts, and creepy things, and those that in the water dwelled, and things with wings, and everything that beareth seed, and grass, and shoot of every flower, all having in themselves seeds of again becoming. And they selected out the births of men for gnosis of the works of God, and attestation of the energy of nature, the multitude of men for lordship over all beneath the heaven, and gnosis of its blessings, that they might increase in increasing, and multiply in multitude, and every soul enfleshed by revolution of the cyclic gods, for observation of the marvels of heaven, and heaven's God's revolution, and of the works of God and energy of nature, for token of its blessings, for gnosis of the power of God, that they might know the fate that follows good and evil deeds, and learn the cunning works of all good arts. Thus there begins their living, and their growing wise, according to the fate appointed by the revolution of the cyclic gods, and their decreasing for this end. And there shall be memorials mighty of their handiwork upon the earth, leaving dim trace behind when cycles are renewed. For every birth of flesh ensouled, and every fruit of seed, and every handiwork, though in decay, shall of necessity renew itself, both by the renovation of the gods, and by the turning round of nature's rhythmic wheel. For that whereas the Godhead is nature's ever making new again, the cosmic mixture, nature herself is also co-established in that Godhead. The Corpus Hermeticum, Chapter 5. The Cup or the Monad. Hermes. With reason, Logos, not with hands, did the world maker make the universal world, so that thou shalt think of him as everywhere and ever being, the author of all things, and one and only, who by his will all beings hath created. This body of him is a thing no man can touch, or see, or measure, a body inexistible, like no other frame. 'Tis neither fire, nor water, nor air, breath, yet all of them come from it. Now being good, he willed to consecrate this body to himself alone, and set its earth in order, and adorn it. So down to the earth he sent the cosmos of this frame divine, a man, a life that cannot die, and yet a life that dies, and o'er of all things, lives, and over cosmos too, did man excel by reason of the reason, logos, and the mind. For contemplator of God's work did man become. He marveled and did strive to know their author. Reason, logos, indeed, O Tat, among all men hath he distributed, but mind not yet. Not that he hath grudgeth any, for grudging cometh not from him, but hath its place below, within the souls of men who have no mind. Tat. Why then did God, O Father, not on all bestow a share of mind? Hermes. He willed, my son, to have it set up in the midst for souls, just as it were a prize. Tat. And where hath he set it up? Hermes. He filled a mighty cup with it, and set it down, joining a herald to it, to whom he gave command to make his proclamation to the hearts of men. Baptize thyself with this cup's baptism. What heart can do so? Thou that hast faith, thou canst ascend to him that hath sent down the cup. Thou that doest know for what thou didst come into being. As many then as understood the herald's tidings and doubts themselves in mind, became partakers in the gnosis, and when they had received the mind, they were made perfect men. But they who do not understand the tidings, these, since they possess the aid of reason only, not mind, are arrogant, wherefore they have become unto being, and whereby. The senses of such men are like irrational creatures, and as their whole makeup is in their feeling and their impulses, they fail in all appreciation of it. They do not wonder at those things which are really worth contemplation. These center all their thought upon the pleasures of the body and its appetites, in the belief that for its sake man hath come into being. But they who have received some portion of God's gifts, these, Tat, if we judge by their deeds, have from death's bounds won their release, for they embrace in their own mind all things, things on the earth, things in the heaven, and things above the heaven, if there be aught. And having raised themselves so far, they sight the good, and having sighted it, they look upon their sojourn here as a mischance, and in disdain of all, both things in body and the bodiless. They speed their way onto that one and only one. This is, O Tat, the gnosis of the mind, vision of all things divine. God knowledge is it, for the cup is God's. Tat. Father, I too would be baptized. Hermes. Unless thou first shalt hate thy body, son, thou canst not love thyself. But if thou lovest thyself, thou shalt have mind, and having mind, thou shalt share in the gnosis. Tat. Father, what doubts thou mean? Hermes. It is not possible, my son, to give thyself to both. I mean to things that perish and to things divine, foreseeing that existing things are twined, body and bodiless, in which the perishing and the divine are understood. The man who hath the will to choose is left the choice of one or the other, for it can never be the twine should meet, and in those souls to whom the choice is left, the waning of the one cause the other's growth to show itself. Now, choosing of the better not only proves a lot, most fair for him who makes the choice, seeing it makes the man a god, but also shows his piety to God, whereas the choosing of the worse, although it doth destroy the man, it doth only disturbs God's harmony to this extent, that as processions pass by in the middle of the way, without being able to do anything but take the road from others. To do so, such men move in procession through the world, led by their body's pleasures. This being so, O Tat, what comes from God hath been and will be ours, but that which is dependent on ourselves, Let this press onward and have no delay, for 'tis not God, 'tis we who are the cause of evil things, preferring them to good. Thou seest, son, how many are the bodies through which we have to pass? How many are the choirs of daemons? How vast the system of the star courses, through which our path doth lie, to hasten to the one and only God? For to the good there is no other shore. It hath no bounds, it is without an end, and for itself it is without beginning. 2. Through unto us it seemeth to have one, the gnosis. Therefore, to it gnosis is no beginning, rather it is that gnosis doth afford to us the first beginning of its being known. Let us lay hold, therefore, of the beginning, and quick speed through all we have to pass. 'Tis very hard to leave the things we have grown used to, which meet our gaze on every side, and turn ourselves back to the old path, the old path. Appearances delight us, whereas things which appear not make their believing hard. Now, evils are the most apparent things, whereas the good can never show itself unto the eyes, for it hath neither form nor figure. Therefore the good is like itself alone, and unlike all things else, or 'tis impossible that that which hath no body should make itself apparent to a body. The like superiority to the unlike, and the unlike's inferiority unto the like, consist in this: the oneness being source and root of all, is in all things as root and source. Without this source it is not, whereas the source itself is from naught but itself, since it is source of all the rest. It is itself its source, since it may have no other source. Oneness then being source containeth every number, but is contained by none, engendereth every number, but engendereth by no other one. Now all that is engendered is perfect, but is divisible to increase, subject, and to decrease. But with the perfect one, none of these things doth hold. Now that which is increasing increases from the oneness, but succumbs through its own feebleness when it no longer can contain the one. And now, O Tat, God's image hath been sketched for thee, as far as it can be, and if thou wilt attentively dwell on it, and observe it with thine heart's eyes, believe me, son, thou'lt find the path that leads above. Nay, that image shall become thy guide itself, because thy sight divine hath this peculiar charm. It holdeth fast and draweth unto it those who succeed in opening their eyes, just as, they say, the magnet draweth the iron.
I adore thee, ruins of ancient gold. Power me, demons of the abyss, children of esoteric father, beyond the devil's reach. Great Mother Hydra, I summon the great ones. We offer cash. I summon